Hey, everybody, and welcome to Study Hall. We're going to dive deep today into President Trump's executive order from February 1st, 2025.
Okay. Sounds good.
It's a big one.
Yeah.
25% tariff on all imports from Mexico. So
Wow.
we got the source document right here, and we're going to break down its goals, see if they hold water, and explore what this could all mean, for both countries, really.
Yeah. I think what's interesting right off the bat is how this order tries to tackle some really complex issues. Immigration, drug trafficking, national security,
Right.
all through trade policy.
Yeah.
It's a bold move, to say the least, and it could have some serious ripple effects.
Yeah, absolutely. So the order starts by declaring a national emergency at the southern border. And it paints a pretty intense picture, I would say, citing a surge in illegal immigration, drug trafficking, and saying there's been a tripling of inadmissible encounters since Trump's first term.
Yeah.
What exactly are inadmissible encounters anyway?
Well, it's a bit of jargon, but based on how it's used here, it likely refers to people who were stopped trying to enter the U.S. illegally. It's a measure of how many unauthorized border crossings are happening.
Right.
And a tripling of that number
Wow.
definitely suggests a perceived escalation of the situation.
Yeah, the order doesn't mince words, does it? One line that really stood out to me is, a nation without borders is not a nation at all. That seems to be the heart of it, national security.
Absolutely. And it goes on to lay the blame squarely at Mexico's feet.
Yeah.
The order claims Mexico isn't doing enough to fight drug cartels and human trafficking, even calling the relationship between the Mexican government and cartels an intolerable alliance.
Wow.
And accusing them of providing safe havens for criminal activity.
Okay, so that's the problem as the order sees it.
Yeah.
Well, what's the proposed solution? How does slapping a 25% tariff on all Mexican imports actually address these issues?
Well, it's all about leverage. The idea is to squeeze Mexico economically and force them to cooperate on curbing illegal immigration and the flow of drugs.
Okay, but isn't there a chance this could backfire? The order itself warns that the tariff could go even higher if Mexico hits back with tariffs on U.S. goods. That sounds like a recipe for a trade war, doesn't it?
It's definitely a gamble, like a high-stakes game of chicken, you could say. There are some potential benefits, sure. Increased border security, maybe Mexico does cooperate more.
Right.
Potentially even a slowdown in the flow of fentanyl into the U.S.
Right.
And it could give a boost to domestic production if American goods become more competitive.
So you're saying there are two sides to this coin, some potential upsides, but some serious risks as well.
Exactly. We have to consider the downsides, too. This could mean higher prices for American consumers and businesses, potentially even an economic slowdown. It could also really strain diplomatic relations and escalate tensions with Mexico.
Yeah.
And let's not forget, tariffs might not even be effective against cartels who operate outside the legal system anyway.
Right. There's one detail that caught my eye. The order exempts goods that were already en route to the U.S. as of February 1st. Why do you think they included that?
Good catch. That could be an attempt to soften the blow, at least initially. Maybe they're trying to avoid immediate disruptions for businesses or hoping to prevent Mexico from retaliating right away.
So even with this tariff in place, there's a way to remove it, Race. The order says, if the Secretary of Homeland Security decides Mexico has taken adequate steps to deal with the situation, the tariffs can be lifted. What do you make of that?
That's where things get a little fuzzy. The order doesn't define adequate steps, so it's open to interpretation.
Right.
And sets the stage for future negotiations. It gives the U.S. a lot of wiggle room, but it also adds to the uncertainty of how this will all play out.
So what we're seeing here is a really high-stakes play with a lot of unknowns. It's too early to say what the lasting consequences will be, but it's clear this executive order has thrown a major wrench into the works.
It certainly has.
And it really underscores how interconnected these issues are.
Yeah.
Border security, trade, economics, diplomacy, you can't separate them.
It's all connected. And it really makes you think about the people on the ground, right? Like in both the U.S. and Mexico.
Yeah.
How this might hit their wallets, their jobs, their daily lives.
Yeah, that's the crucial question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let's start with American consumers. A 25% tariff on everything coming in from Mexico. I mean, that means you could be paying a lot more for groceries.
Yeah.
Avocados, tomatoes, produce all kinds of things.
Right.
And it's not just food either. Car parts, electronics. A lot of those everyday items could see a price hike.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So could this actually lead to like a noticeable increase in the cost of living? Like, will people actually feel this, in their bank accounts?
Well, it's hard to say exactly how much prices will go up.
Yeah.
A lot depends on how businesses respond. Do they absorb the cost? Do they pass it on to consumers? But to give you an idea, a study by the Peterson Institute for International Economics estimated that a 25% tariff on Mexican goods could cost the average American household an extra $1,300 per year.
Whoa, okay. That's a serious chunk of change. And what about the impact on American businesses?
Well, think about manufacturing. A lot of American companies rely on Mexican imports for parts and supplies.
Right.
These tariffs could really disrupt those supply chains.
Yeah.
We could see production delays, companies facing higher costs, and that could even lead to job losses.
Yeah. It sounds like a recipe for economic instability for sure.
Yeah.
And what if Mexico retaliates?
Right.
What if they slap tariffs on American goods?
That's the danger here. Mexico is a huge trading partner for the U.S.
Yeah.
They could easily hit back, targeting key sectors like agriculture or manufacturing. And that tit-for-tat could easily spiral into a full-blown trade war, which would hurt both economies.
So both sides could end up losing in this scenario.
It's definitely a risky gamble, and it's not just the economic impact we have to think about. This order could also damage diplomatic relations,
Right.
making it even harder to cooperate on things like border security and drug trafficking in the future.
Yeah, it seems like a delicate balancing act. But beyond the economic and diplomatic fallout, will these tariffs even be effective in achieving their stated goals? I mean, can you really curb illegal immigration and drug trafficking just by taxing goods?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Remember we talked about how these criminal networks operate largely outside the bounds of legal trade? So will slapping a tariff on legal goods really disrupt their operations?
Right, because those cartels aren't exactly importing their product, through legitimate channels.
Exactly. Increased border security might deter some individuals, but it's unlikely to dismantle the sophisticated smuggling operations run by these cartels.
Right.
And when it comes to fentanyl, focusing only on the supply side ignores the huge issue of demand and addiction here in the U.S.
Yeah, it feels like using a sledgehammer to crack a nut. This executive order seems like such a blunt instrument for dealing with a very complex problem.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
It's important to remember there are no easy solutions here. Immigration and border security have been political battlegrounds for decades.
Right.
It's going to take a multifaceted approach and cooperation from both sides to make any real progress.
So how can we make sense of all this? What should we be paying attention to as this situation unfolds?
It's crucial to stay informed and go beyond the headlines. Don't just take things at face value.
Yeah.
Do your own research. Dig into the arguments and the evidence. Pay attention to how this policy actually plays out in the real world, how it affects people's lives, businesses, communities, both in the U.S. and in Mexico.
So you're saying don't just passively consume the news, be an active participant, think critically, ask questions, and seek out different perspectives.
Exactly. What are the arguments for and against this approach? What are the alternatives? And what about the long-term implications for the U.S.'s relationship with Mexico and its standing on the global stage? These are important questions to consider.
Yeah, it's not just about the immediate impact, but the ripple effects that could be felt for years to come. Now, we've talked a lot about the negative aspects of this executive order, but there's one crucial perspective we haven't addressed yet, and it might surprise you. This whole executive order is focused on the negative impacts of, illegal immigration and drug trafficking. But what about the other side of the coin? What about the potential benefits of immigration, both legal and unauthorized?
That's an absolutely crucial point. Historically, immigration has played a major role in shaping the U.S. economy and culture. Immigrants often fill labor gaps. They start businesses, contribute to innovation, and enrich the social fabric of communities.
And even unauthorized immigrants contribute to the economy through their labor and consumption, despite facing significant challenges and vulnerabilities. It feels like this order only focuses on one side of the story.
You're right, it does. And by solely focusing on the negative aspects, we risk overlooking the contributions and potential of immigrants. It's crucial to acknowledge the complexity of this issue and to consider the human stories behind the statistics. There are real people affected by these policies, and their voices deserve to be heard.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like finding the right balance is key here.
Yeah.
Balancing security concerns with the economic and social benefits of immigration.
Right.
Is this executive order the right way to achieve that balance?
That's the big question. While the order might have some, positive impacts, It's unclear if it truly strikes that delicate balance.
Right.
It relies heavily on punitive measures and might not be effective in addressing the root causes of the issues it aims to solve.
Okay, so where do we go from here? What can we do to engage with this issue in a meaningful way? It feels overwhelming sometimes trying to make sense of it all.
Well, the first step is to stay informed. Read diverse perspectives, challenge your own assumptions, and engage in respectful conversations with people who hold different viewpoints. Don't just stay in your echo chamber. Actively seek out information from reliable sources both within and outside your usual media bubble.
So basically, be an active and critical consumer of information. Don't just accept what you hear at face value.
Exactly. And think about taking action. You know you can contact your elected officials to express your concerns and advocate for policies that align with your values. You can get involved with community organizations working on immigration and border security issues. Remember, this isn't just an abstract political debate. It has real-world consequences for real people.
Yeah. By engaging thoughtfully and compassionately, we can contribute to a more informed and nuanced public discourse on this complex topic. Hopefully that will lead to more effective and humane solutions in the long run.
Well said. We've covered a lot of ground today, haven't we? We broke down the executive order itself, explored the potential benefits and drawbacks, and talked about the wider implications. But most importantly, we challenged you to think critically about this issue and to engage with it in a meaningful way.
Remember, knowledge is power. By staying informed, asking tough questions, and seeking out diverse perspectives, we can all contribute to a more informed and constructive dialogue on immigration, border security, and the future of U.S.-Mexico relations. Thanks for joining us today on Study Hall. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.